Hey guys, welcome to RenderRides. So a company named Ubiquity6 recently reached out to me asking if I was interested in collaborating with them, showcasing their app called Display.Land. And honestly, all they needed to get me to say yes was this. If you're following me on Instagram, then you'd know how much I love the concept of 3D scanning. I've done some scanning in the past, and I know that the whole process is just super time consuming, and since I don't have an insanely powerful machine to calculate all the photogrammetry data, it usually took me ages. And even if this wasn't a sponsored video, I would have jumped straight into Display.Land if I had known its capabilities before. But now I do, and that's exactly what I'm going to be discussing in this video. So let's get started. Just to give you a rough idea before we get into using the app to create something awesome in Blender, 3D scanning is a technique of analyzing a real-world environment or object to collect data about its shape and appearance. That data can then be used to recreate the real-world object as 3D models using various software. This data is usually collected using all kinds of complex 3D laser scanners and camera rigs. Now I'm guessing your mind is already blown if you didn't know about 3D scanning already, but hear this out. Display.Land is a free app that lets you recreate your real-world environments just using your smartphone camera directly from the app. Usually if you're using software like Mushroom or for 3D scanning, you take pictures of your model from all the angles and then bring them to your PC to generate the mesh using the data. This is a very hardware-intensive task and demands a lot of power. The cool thing about Display.Land is that you just record a video of your subject from all the angles and then it'll upload it to their servers and generate it for you. You literally just need to sit back and relax while their cloud operations are generating the mesh for you, which you can later view and also edit and then upload it and let people explore your work all within the app. This is one of the factors that I think makes it much more unique than its competitors. Now obviously there are some drawbacks to the app as well. If you have an old phone which does not support AR core, it won't work on your phone. Also, some of the features do not work as well on Android phones, like the point cloud generation while the video is being shot, but it is important to know that the app is still in the early stages of its development and they're working hard on that update, which should be out within a few weeks, so that's absolutely awesome. Being able to see the point cloud generate real time like that is a dream come true, as you can troubleshoot and make sure that you're capturing properly, which will save you a ton of time and resources. Now that's enough of an introduction to the app, let's actually get into making the scene. So we're going to be making this night railway station scene in Blender, where the railway track was scanned using Display.Land. I'll upload the model somewhere for free, so check the resources section in the description if you want to follow along. Also, you can buy the scene on Gumroad or support me on Patreon to get it for free. Now let's start by downloading the app from the given link in the description, which should take you straight to the download page. After opening it up, you're gonna see something like this. It kind of feels like Instagram and lets you like and comment on other people's projects and follow them. But what we are interested in is this plus icon right here. Click on it to open your camera and start scanning by clicking on this begin button. It'll then start scanning your environment through your smartphone camera and generate the 3D point cloud as you move. I would recommend testing the app out on simpler objects first and learning what you're really supposed to be doing to get better captures by experimenting. So before you capture your final object, just practice by starting off with simpler objects. I've made a whole bunch of both terrible and good scans with this app, and here's a summary of what I've learned so far. Try not to include super bright reflections or lights in your scene. Actually, never try to capture reflections, as the app will get confused thinking that the reflection is an extension of the environment, resulting in really bad artifacts. Also, try to shoot on a cloudy day to get softer and even lighting and almost no harsh shadows. This will help a lot with the generated textures because it will almost look flat like a diffuse texture. Second, start looping around the object from a distance first for the major shapes of the environment, then starting to spiral your way closer to capture the details as well. It's also important to note that you take some high and low level shots as well to ensure that you're really getting all of that sweet detail. Third, completely plain surfaces capture really bad, as there isn't much information that the app can use to guess its position and shape. Plus, if you're planning to use them in a scene, you're really not going to need them anyway because they're very easy to model. Areas where the photogrammetry really shines is with complex objects, which are really hard to recreate realistically, like bricks and pebbles and statues and whatnot. If you want to learn more about taking good captures in DisplayLand, I'll link some good sources that you can check out. DisplayLand also shows you the minimum threshold for the capture, which will help you to know if you have captured enough information about the object. So after you're done scanning, hit this capturing button to stop capturing. It'll then show this menu where you specify the title of the project, the location of the capture, and then ask you to upload the data to their servers for processing the mesh. You can either upload right away or later depending on whether you're ready or not. Keep the app open while it is uploaded, and once it is done, the menu will disappear automatically. It is then safe to close the app after that. You'll get a notification on your phone when the processing is done, after which you can view it, edit it however you like, and publish it for other people to see, or in this case, keep it personal since this was just a test. Now here comes the fun part, getting the model inside Blender. To do that, we need to open the link of our project on our PC and head over to the top right corner where there is this download button and click on it. It'll then give you some download options, but what we're looking for is the OBJ option. Then we can just get into Blender and import the OBJ file from here. After you load it in, you can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. What I did first was to make a decent material out of just one texture that they provide, and also I made a mask for the metal part of the track to add that realistic shininess to it. If the scan is too dense for your computer to handle, you can also use a decimate modifier and set the values to somewhere around 0.5 to 0.8 to reduce the number of triangles in your object without losing a lot of details. A lower value will obviously mean that the result will contain a lower number of triangles, which would also mean a loss in detail. I did go an extra mile with this object and created a whole scene out of it, which depicted kind of an old worn railway station where there was this guy sitting on the platform smoking, who is maybe like a mechanic for this engine or a dude that just broke into the station, and it just adds that extra bit of a mystery and a story to the scene. So first up, I made the platform of the station. It's pretty simple, just a plane with some extrusions. Then I separated the ground part where there are going to be gravels and this top platform, which you'll get to know why in the texturing stage. After that, I made a pillar using a cylinder and an object from the Kit Bash project made by Gleb Alexandrov and A.D. Burrows for their hard surface course. I noticed it was licensed under Creative Commons, so I decided to use it for this video. I don't know if that's cheating, but yeah. After that, I made a huge cube between both the pillars and then added some loop cuts to get square faces like so. Then you can just triangulate these faces and add a wireframe modifier on the object to get this frame effect. With some more simple tweaks, you can also make the connecting frames with the pillars. Then I instanced this whole thing by pressing Alt-D and then Shift-R to repeat the command till we get a bunch of these in our scene. Let's also add the walls of the station and extrude out a roof from it as such. Then we're going to separate out this roof so that it is easier to manage later. We also have this big cube going with the frame here where there are some small extruded areas acting like the lights. It is pretty simple to make, just a smaller cube with loop cuts and an extrusion with an array modifier on it to loop it till it reaches the end. And then we can just put a mirror modifier on it, which will be controlled by an empty object in the middle of the scene, just high enough so that it is out of our way. After that, we can move on to the details like the wires under the platform in this little cavity. These wires are also from the Kit Bash project. Again, links to everything down in the description. I also got this bench model from BlendSwap and decided to put it across the whole platform. Finally, you can add the tracks in the scene by adding one of them and then instancing it to the other end and then scaling it by -1 so that it seamlessly transitions to the other. Then you can select both of them and instance it as far as you need it to, and it'll almost be seamless all throughout. Now for the main focuses of the scene, the train and the smoking guy. The train is from BlendSwap as well. I was pretty surprised to find such an amazing model for free. I put it on the left track, a little away from the camera. Then I headed over to Mixamo.com straight to the characters section to get a suitable character for this scene. I found this character called James who seemed perfect for the scene. Then I went ahead and clicked on find animations and then searched for sitting animations, and this is what I found. Then I paused at a frame that I thought would be the best to start off with, noted the frame number and trimmed the animation down to that particular frame and then hit download with skin. After that, I brought it into the project, posed him to get him looking like he's smoking with some extra flair and position him from the camera angles as such. Then I got a cigarette off of BlendSwap again and put it between his fingers, time constraints. Finally, I put some details into the scene such as this flashlight near the character that also helps in separating him from the background, and some doors on the walls that I made using the Archimesh add-on. Now let's move on to the materials. I decided to start with the platform first as I thought it would be pretty straightforward, and it kinda is, but kinda isn't at the same time. It has a simple PBR material made from textures that I got online for free, the links to which I will leave in the description down below. But it basically has a base color, roughness, and normal map hooked up to a principal shader, but I also wanted the yellow cautionary strips that you usually see in railway stations near the tracks on the model. So I took a seamless picture of such a yellow strip on a road, tiled it using a mapping node to get a thinner strip with some extra space near the edge of the platform. Now to remove the rest of the strips that we don't need, we need to use some sort of a black and white texture to basically tell Blender where we need those strips and where we don't. I used a gradient texture for that, and using a color ramp punched it towards the area where we need the strip to appear at. After that, I used a mix RGB node, set it to add, and then put the base color of the concrete texture on the first input, the strip texture on the second input, then use the gradient mask that we just created to control the factor. Now we are getting somewhere that resembles what we want, but there is still the road texture appearing, so I just used the brightness contrast node on the strip texture before adding it to the concrete. Set the brightness to -0.2 and the contrast to 0.4 to almost isolate the yellow strip. Then we can just hook up the add node to the base color and the material is complete. Here's what the whole node map looks like if you missed a step or two. Then I copied the concrete material nodes without the strip texture and made a new material for the sides of the platform and pasted in those nodes and connected it to the principal shader. The reason why we did this is to remove a checker pattern error that was created because of my bad masking skills. I apologize. Now let's take a look at the gravel material. It's again a very simple material with all the textures connected and also a displacement texture connected to the displacement node with a scale set to 0.25 connected to the displacement input of the material output. This won't work right off the bat, so we need to go to the material settings, and here at the surface panel we'll see an option that says displacement. Change this to displacement and bump, so you'll have both true deformations in the mesh using the displacement texture and fake bumps from the normal map, which is exactly what we want. In the same way, I added the materials for the walls, the poles, the bench, and the train, and just kept reusing them in all the metal parts of the scene because the whole scene is so dark it doesn't even matter how detailed the materials are. We also have some emissive materials in the scene, like the lights of the train, the lights on the terrace that we made earlier. These are also pretty simple, just an emission shader with varying strengths. I used a value of 20 for the overhead lamp's strengths, which only lit the scene a little much and not too much. It's just a matter of adding those simple materials to all of the objects in the scene and unwrapping those with textures wherever they are needed. Then comes the lighting. I went for a very dark, eerie midnight type of look with not many lights. The emissive shaders of the roof lights worked as ambient lights. I used the spotlight pointing towards the camera a little downwards from the top lights of the train to give off a nice illumination of the track, as well as to grab the attention of the viewers towards the train as well as the track below. We're using the composition of rule of thirds, if you didn't notice, keeping the main points of interest in the points where these lines cross. I have a full video about showcasing your models better using some of these techniques, where I also go over in brief the importance of composition. You can check it out right here. Then to give some attention to the character on our right, I decided to add a flashlight near him, illuminating him from behind, giving off a mysterious silhouette kind of look. I think it also adds to the story a lot and the mood of the scene as well. I also have a volume in this scene made using a huge cube that covers the whole scene with a principal volume shader connected to the volume input of the material output. I set the color to something dark, density to 0.05 and the anisotropy value to 0.22. This is pretty much the secret sauce that adds a whole lot to the atmosphere of your scene, but is equally tasking on your hardware. I tried but could not render it out on a decent resolution on my PC, but I was lucky enough to get help from my buddy Lucas Kellerman, who was kind enough to render the scene out for me. So that pretty much wraps up the whole scene. It wasn't a lot, but I hope I was able to make you see the potential of 3D scanning objects and using it in your scenes. I hope that you also learned a thing or two by watching this video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button. I also made some post-processing to the scene, which is an optional step, but I usually like to add that final bit of oomph to the render. And yeah, if you want to try out the app, which I highly recommend, you can head over to the link in the description to where you can download the app. Also be sure to check out our Discord server where a lot of cool artists hang out and be a part of it. You can also follow me on Instagram at RenderRides to get a lot of behind the scenes content. Finally, I want to welcome Trelligan as our first Patreon supporter. If you want to be like him and get the prestigious Patrons role in our Discord server and also a lot of cool rewards like monthly Blender packages and all the projects in my videos, be sure to head over to the Patreon page to support me in making more of such videos. And if you want to only buy this scene, then you can go to the Gumroad page linked below. Subscribe to not miss out on future videos. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.